Thank you all for coming. We're going to go ahead and get things started. My name is Joe Thierio. I'm one of the founders of Voters in Action. I appreciate you coming out here tonight. I would have liked to introduce some of the Woodstock elected officials, but we didn't have anybody show up today. So in the absence of that, and they were sent invitations. In the absence of that, we do have Mike Walkup, who's candidate for chairman, and Colonel Craig Wilcox, who's here right in front there. He's a candidate for county board. And so I appreciate you coming out. Voters in Action was started in 2014 as a sort of a backwards byproduct of the Randall Road expansion. So that $150 million project, there were a couple of us standing around who said, A, I don't think most of my neighbors know that this is even happening, and B, if they did know that it was happening, they probably wouldn't know what to do about it. And C, if they knew it was happening, and they didn't know what to do, and they did know what to do about it, they probably didn't have the time and the resources or the opportunities to do those things. So that's when we started trying to find some of these critical issues, inform people about them, educate them about them, and give them opportunities to activate, to be activists, and with as little resistance as possible. And so that's how we got started. In the meantime, we've been, I don't want to take credit for reversing these things, but we've slowed down the Randall Road progress. I think we're partly responsible for the fact that we don't have clinics in the Woodstock schools. That was fraught with all sorts of liability and other sorts of issues that hadn't been considered. Turf, we put the brakes on putting $2 million worth of turf in a 100-year-old, 50% occupied school, and those are just some of the things that we've addressed. Coming to the podium now is Scott Gessert, and he'll tell you a little bit more about specifically what we've been involved in here in relation to home rule. Thank you, Joe. Applause for the legend coming up here. I just want to take a moment and update people. Again, my name is Scott Gessert. The Woodstock City staff, currently under the direction of Mayor Brian Sauger, is now drafting for City Council consideration a policy which may become only the fourth of its type in over 200 Illinois home rule communities. The policy, if approved, will be a self-imposed limitation on certain types of newly proposed home rule taxes. We will keep you posted. Unlike other Illinois cities which were provided a choice to voters on a referendum to decide whether or not to adopt home rule authority, or still other Illinois communities which allowed it to occur naturally and cost effectively, Woodstock took a different approach. City officials estimated that with recent new growth in certain neighborhoods, the population here has risen past the 25,000, which would qualify it for automatic adoption of home rule authority. So the city contracted $69,000 of taxpayer money to the U.S. Census Bureau to conduct a special census. Different than the decennial census, the special census is optional. There's no penalty for not participating. You will not get in trouble if you just say no. Why would you want to not participate in a census? Why would you want to encourage your neighbors to do the same and say no to the census? Why would you want to volunteer to help? To help us answer these questions is why we invited our guest speaker here today. Jim Tobin is a champion of protecting taxpayer money. As a former bank examiner for the Federal Reserve, he has witnessed firsthand the waste and corruption in our government. He has successfully led a tax revolt in Illinois in 1977 and consistently defended taxpayers in Springfield, Chicago, and across all of America since founding Taxpayers United of America in 1976. Here to tell why home rule is home ruin, please welcome Mr. Jim Tobin.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been doing this 40 years. Yeah, we're having our 40th anniversary later this year. Hope to see you all there. We characterize home rule as the most insidious form of government anywhere in the United States of America. And I'm going to basically primarily stick with the tax issue here, but the reason we think home rule is insidious is because it allows the city to raise property taxes without limit and without voter approval. The property tax caps are gone for the city if the city gets unlimited home rule taxing power. Second, home rule allows the city to impose new taxes on businesses, services, parking, groceries, and nearly everything else without voter approval. They can't do that if they don't have home rule. But with home rule, they can do that without a referendum. Without home rule, they can't do any of that. Any of that tax theft, I should say. Third, the home rule allows the city to issue debt without a property tax increase referendum. As long as they don't have home rule, they have to have a property tax increase referendum before they issue general obligation debt. With home rule, they can issue all the debt they want without a property tax increase referendum. That results in property tax increases for you. Despite what they might say, we promise we won't abuse it. Typically, almost always, they're lying about it. Let's talk about what happened recently in a small city, about 16,000 folks. They had a home rule guarantee. They passed out to voters. They had to go to referendum because their population was less than 25,000. The Village of Bridgeview's portions of your real estate taxes will be frozen. This was part of the big lie they put in the newspapers and pamphlets they handed around in the campaign. By the way, this is taken from the Tribune, I must say. June 10, 2012. Soccer ball and chain, it's called, according to the Tribune. Using this pledge, Bridgeview leaders got voters to approve broad home rule powers in 2002. Since then, the average homeowner's tax bill, property tax bill, has more than tripled. They promised no property tax hike. Property tax increases have tripled, more than tripled, amid a massive borrowing binge tied largely to a money-losing stadium. Well, the mayor, Mr. Landeck, he profited from this. Now he has two government salaries. Mr. Madigan, the Speaker of the House, the most corrupt politician in Illinois, got him a nice cushy job in the state senate. He's now a state senator collecting a state senate salary and a state senate pension in addition to his pension at the Bridgeview City Hall. Let's see, according to the Tribune, debt issued under home rule is now $230 million. That has to be paid back with interest, $230 million. And I suspect something similar to that is going on here in Woodstock. What is the boondoggle the politicians want home rule for? You have to ask yourself, well, ask them, what particular spending binge do you have in mind? Is it a new city hall? Is it a stadium? Is it a strip joint? What do you want to use our tax dollars to use to profit yourself and your friends and your contractor buddies? Maybe it's a dog racing track, I don't know. Let's see, we'll find out sooner or later. Let's make sure they don't get home rule though. Also, we object to home rule because it expedites seizures of private property. It makes it easier for the city to steal private property legally. And it gives city property tax, it gives city property to private interest without competitive bidding. Mr. Trump might like that a little bit, maybe, I don't know. But definitely it's something that we object to. It gives them unlimited power to tax, and it gives them virtually unlimited power to regulate you as a homeowner or businessman or woman. Because according to the Constitution, under home rule, powers of home rule municipalities shall be interpreted liberally. So if you go to court to sue them to protect your home or business, the judge said, well, the Constitution says the power shall be interpreted liberally. And who put this Constitution together anyway back in 1970? Who was a delegate? Michael Madigan. Cullerton, the Senate president, was a delegate. And that corrupt mayor of Chicago. Richie Daley was a delegate as well. Hard to believe. But that's, why we have a screwed up Constitution passed in 1970. The 1870 Constitution we had was a good one. We should have kept it. It provided property tax, tax limits. It occurred soon after that revolt, referred to as the War Between the States. That was a big tax revolt. And a lot of states got the message and decided to reform their constitutions. Illinois passed a pretty good constitution for its time in terms of taxpayers' point of view. 1870 Constitution had limits on taxes. They're gone now, thanks to much of the limits are gone now, thanks to the 1970 Constitution. Let's give you I'll give you a couple of reasons for home rule. I don't really like, but here's another motive for the most insidious form of government in the United States of America. 80% of municipal taxes, including property taxes, go to pay government employees salaries, pensions, and benefits. 80% of your city property taxes go to pay the salaries and pensions at City Hall. The Woodstock government bureaucrats are trying to seize the opportunity to steal even more of taxpayers' hard-earned cash by adopting home rule for its greedy empire building. Empire building? Woodstock? Well, yeah, I mean, they're already doing it, as far as I'm concerned. If they get that home rule power to issue debt without limit, boy, there's no limit to what they can do to you. And do for their friends. So, there are currently more than 300 full-time and part-time city employees for a population of less than 25,000 people. More than 300 of them. 14 of these employees make more than $100,000 a year, and 157 of these jobs are pension eligible. So there you go. There's another motive for home rule. It allows them to raise your taxes, to tax you in virtually any way they want, and then use a bunch of that money to give themselves pay raises. And why not have 500 employees, or 600, 800? We have all sorts of things that need to be done. There are all sorts of needs for these people, at least in their own minds. At least 14 of the current Woodstock pensioners will collect more than $1 million in city pensions, funded with your property taxes. I'll say that again. At least 14 of the current Woodstock pensioners will collect more than $1 million in city pensions, funded with your property taxes. Home rule will give Woodstock bureaucrats the power to tax and regulate virtually without limit, anything they want without approval of voters through referendum. If a measure is good for the constituents, it should go up to a referendum, and that's required without home rule. This is one of the most important controls voters have over their local government, and there is no good reason to give it up and hand the power to the bureaucrats. A number of home rule, smaller cities have passed home rule by having referenda on non-regular election days or on election days when voter turnout is low. But you can get away with that if the population of your city is like 5,000 or 8,000, and you can get the city employees to vote yes, come out on an election day that has a low voter turnout. But you can't do that by county. You can't sneak one of these by county-wide. And every attempt by the bureaucrats to get a referendum for home rule by county has been defeated by the taxpayers. Up to 90% of the voters, I think in St. Clair County, voted to repeal unlimited home rule taxing powers. No, only one county has home rule. I call it Crook County. I'm a resident of Crook County, and I've been fighting them quite year after year for 40 years now. But Crook County is the only county with unlimited home rule taxing powers, and they tax almost anything they can, including wheels on trucks. And they did, of course, get home rule without a referendum because the population is over 1 million. But every other county that's tried to get home rule has been defeated. In fact, I don't even think I've seen a county schedule a referendum for home rule in more than 10 years, probably more than 20 years. To help the average taxpayer understand the problem, we list the names of employees and pensioners and the amounts they collect in retirement. It really hits home when people see the names of their local civil servants, people in their own community they know, at least by name, and the stunning amounts they collect from taxpayers through your property taxes, your city property taxes. Timothy J. Clifton retired from Woodstock municipal government and tops our Woodstock list and ranks 230th in the state of Illinois with a very comfortable $112,000 pension funded with your property taxes. The accumulation of those payments over a normal lifetime will reach about $2.9 million. If he has a normal lifetime, he will receive $2.9 million in city pension paid with your city property taxes. His contribution to that gold-plated pension was only $342,000. Let's see, if he has a normal lifetime, he gets $2.9 million for $342,000 out of his salary while he was employed by the city. That's a real steal, I'd say. 2.9 million for 340, yeah, that's a real steal, that's what we say. Roscoe Stefford III tops the list of our highest Woodstock salaries at City Hall. This poor civil servant takes in about $155,000 in salary alone. This doesn't include gold-plated pensions and other benefits he gets. At this point, hopefully you all have the pension grid. If not, we can give one to you. And I'm really proud of these pension grids we put together. We started doing this about 10 years ago. And here's, you know, you can basically see why the pensions are such a mess in this state by looking at the amounts that these people get and retiring in their 50s and 60s. And I'll just pick a name at random here. Woodstock Municipal Pensions as of 2016. From the first page, John Reed. His annual pension is $61,611. He contributed $64,149. He's already received $208,000. Retiring at age 55, he will receive $1.9 million if he has a normal lifetime after retiring at age 55. $1.9 million. His contribution is 3%. He's contributed 3%, or $64,000. For $64,000, he gets back $1.9 million. By the way, don't feel too bad about these retired government employees. They also get Social Security on top of their property tax funded pensions. Almost all of them do. Not all of them, but almost all of them get Social Security as well. So, you know, I think you might, next time they want to raise our taxes or support home rule, you see anyone supporting home rule, please throw him or her out of office at the next election. Please do that. And refuse to participate in the special census. This is a tax increase census, funded with your tax dollars to enable them to raise or steal more of your money without a referendum. So please refuse to participate in the special census they have going around the city. Sorry, I'm not answering any questions. And bye. No, goodbye. And you know, so they have to have proof from the government that they have 25,000 people here residing in the city. And please stop them from doing that. At this point, I'd like to introduce Jared LaBelle. Jared, I don't know, there's a couple things I haven't touched on, but I've tried to hit almost everything, but he always picks up on things I miss. So Jared is our man in Chicago.
Careful. Got the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
No, Jim, you did a wonderful job touching on all of these issues, but it's especially important for you to talk to your neighbors that aren't here tonight. Tell them about what Voters in Action are doing, and Joe and Scott, point them to our website, Taxpayers United, and get the word out. This will have disastrous effects upon your community, as Jim pointed out. You've seen what's going on in Chicago, right? Now I know that that's a little bit of a scale up, but that's the type of financial fiasco that will hit the city will come your way as well. And it's unfortunate because many of the elected leaders will say things that aren't exactly 100%. They have their own interests, of course, and it's very difficult once this is passed for it to be repealed. It's not impossible. Since Jim founded Taxpayers United in 1976, he has defeated 211 home rule referenda, whether repealing or stopping the enactment of home rule. 211 in 40 years. Not bad. On top of that, we've also defeated 208 property tax increase referenda, so for a total of 419 victories for taxpayers, saving taxpayers in Illinois. We've estimated a little over $200 billion, including the graduated income taxes we've helped defeat since 1992. Every year, every attempt since 1992, the graduated income tax has been defeated, including just a few days ago. You might have heard that as well. So again, just to reiterate those points, that home rule taxing authority will have devastating consequences for Woodstock. And unfortunately, in other states, home rule is actually better. Their home rule can't be painted with one broad brush. In other states, you're allowed to have a local constitution or some type of covenant to be able to freeze property taxes or limit certain tax increases, but not in Illinois. Again, as Jim pointed out, Mike Madigan helped ensure that that wasn't going to happen, as well as helping insert the pension protection clause into the Illinois Constitution in 1970. So these things are all interrelated, and that's why we do what we do, fighting taxes across Illinois and across the United States. And we've tried to show activists how to fight back as best they can at the local level through what we do, these Freedom of Information Act requests, getting the government data to show how local bureaucrats are pillaging taxpayers. So again, thank you for having us out, and I'm sure we'll be touching base soon as we hear more about how things are developing, and we'd like to help you fight this from being enacted here.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So where does that leave us? Well, some of you may be aware that we came to the city with a proposal. And if you read this page, the back in the orange section, you'll see what we proposed. We offered the city what we thought was a solution, an opportunity to get what they saw as some of the benefits while retaining some control for the people. And essentially, they had no argument with the notification part of it, but didn't want any part of the ability for us to pass a petition and get a referendum to control the spending. So you might ask why that is. Well, I would love to know, to Jim's point, I feel like when you do the math and 2 + 2 = 5, you know you're missing a number somewhere in there, and I think they know what that number is. But if you want a clue, if you go to the May 11th meeting packet, City Council meeting packet, and you open that up and search for home rule, you'll find one point where they've already spent some of the money for home rule. They've already earmarked some money for something very important. No, not really. They want to spend about $50,000 so that each household will get a reusable tote bag. Does anybody here want to have the city buy a tote bag for you? Is anyone here not able to buy a tote bag on their own if they so choose. Exactly. So they've already started to spend their money on foolish things. It comes down to, do we trust the people in our city council? And I think my personal opinion is no, given some of the choices they've made recently. Mike Turner made the statement, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but it's in the newspaper. You can look at it, both in the Herald and the Independent. You voted me in, you can vote me out, that's your referendum. So in other words, stay home and you get whatever we give you, is the way I read that. And I commented on the article, asked Mike to respond. I haven't heard anything from Mr. Turner. So we gave them an opportunity to get what we think is the best of home rule and still allow us some control. And so far they've said no. In the discussion, and we have a video, and you can see it if you go to YouTube, Voters in Action, search for Voters in Action. You can listen to the whole discussion of home rule. It's about an hour long. They want no part of allowing us any sort of control in that. So what do we do about it? To Jim's point, there's going to be a special census. They're going to look at some of the new development in the city out by Sweetwater and the Sonatas and that area. And they're going to send people around there and send mail out there and try to find enough people to fill the gap between where we are and 25,000. You, as citizens, if you live in that area, are able to say, I don't answer any questions, and not act on that census to send a message. What we're looking for, and this is why we put out free coffee, and it's laced with Bailey's, I think, is volunteers to help us walk those streets and carry the message that you received here today, if you feel strongly about it, and help us tell those people face to face that we aren't going to sit and let them get the keys to almost unlimited taxing power. So you've got a couple things in front of you. So you've got this, and this is what we'll be walking the neighborhoods with. You've got a feedback form, and if you're interested in volunteering, if you put your name and email address and just write volunteer somewhere on there, we'll be in touch with you, and we'll have maps. We'll have it all mapped out for you. We're very organized, if nothing else. And again, here there's a call to action here. If you've listened to Jim and to Scott and I, and you still don't have the fire in your belly, go back to Jim's grids. Go back and to the web page. It's on the bottom of those grids, which is
Taxpayer Education Foundation.
TaxpayerEducationFoundation.org.
Yes.
Yes.
And they'll also be available at Taxpayers United. It's our research foundation as well.
And Taxpayers United. And look at some of those. And if that doesn't get your blood boiling, I don't know what it would take to do that. So I ask you as a neighbor and as a friend and as somebody who loves this town as much as you do, if you're here tonight, to help me, help you, help us, and stop this ridiculous measure. They're charging us. They're charging us. I think it's $120,000 at closer look to do this census. They're charging us for the shovel to dig the hole that will be our grave. So I'm asking you to volunteer if you can to help us get the word out and stop this from happening. Yes, question. Okay.
Laryngitis.
What is the scope? What is the validity of this census if they're only going to new neighborhoods?
Exactly.
We live south of the square.
So do I.
There are a lot of empty
Right.
homes. What's their base starting number?
I have been trying through numerous FOIA requests, trying to get an answer to that question. So the question was, for those who couldn't hear, what is the validity to this census? Because I think your point is they're going to these new places where there's growth, and in fact, there are some people who left my street and went to those new places.
Right.
So that's not really new, that's not really new people.
Or completely left town.
And then there's some people on my street
So are they,
that left town. So I can't seem to get an answer to how they're gonna factor in the loss in the rest of the city against the gains in those couple little neighborhoods.
okay, so it's the, it's the US Census Bureau?
It is the US Census Bureau that is contracted to do the work, that's correct.
So I could try to contact them and ask them who they are sending questionnaires to.
Oh, I know, I have the answer. The question she asked is who are they sending it to? I know who they are, I'd be glad to share that with you. And when I asked for the information, rather than them giving me a map or giving me addresses or something that humans use, they sent me the census tract and block numbers. And I had to figure out, it took me about 12 hours to figure out what address actually went into this.
So we know for a fact that it's not the entire town.
It is absolutely a fact, and they won't deny that. They also don't really explain how they're going to factor in the rest of this.
How can that even legally be valid? Why don't they just make up a number?
I don't know. I don't know.
Seriously.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand your frustration. I'm seeking the answer. I haven't been able to find it. That's why this is so important that if we can stop them being able to show the growth, that's going to make it so much harder for them to make the argument that we need
Or to
home
even
rule.
say that whatever number they come up with isn't valid.
Right.
Because they didn't go to every household.
Right.
That seems like the most basic way to invalidate the whole thing.
I'm about 2 steps away from trying to file some lawsuit on the FOIA because they are, I hate to say like inept, but I asked several times for the method. Now the Census Bureau understands my question but refuses to answer because they say that they're in contract with Woodstock and they can't share this information with anyone other than Woodstock. And then when I ask Woodstock, they say they don't know what I'm talking about.
Would any of the other towns that have been through this, might they know?
I don't know, and I wouldn't want to count on it being the same for the other town and make that assumption. I want to get the from whoever the horse is, from their mouth, what the methodology is. Question in the back?
Doesn't it seem like they're in a hurry to get this done instead of waiting 4 years to get a good number, a truthful number? They're in a hurry to get this because they don't want us to count all the people who had exit strategies and have left town.
Right.
Right?
And I'll tell you, so the lady in the back said that, doesn't it seem like they're in a hurry to do this rather than waiting for the typical decennial census? And I would have to agree. Because I think when the full census is done, I don't know that we'll be at 25,000. I think we've had more losses. Yes?
I have a question. The city is in debt, I'm assuming.
Yes, always, right.
Would this be a quick way for them to get out of debt once they do home rule and we get taxed?
Well, keep in
Does that
mind,
work? Can that work that way?
keep in mind, the only way the city gets revenue is when you give it to them.
Yeah.
So, when they say, oh, it's state money or it's federal money or, we're getting, that's your money. So the only way they're going to get out of debt is when you give them more money. So is it possible that they're doing that to raise money?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you know what the debt of the city is right now?
I don't. It's a staggering number. If you throw in the school, you'll pass out. It's ridiculous.
Like how bad?
The lady who has all the answers to that, unfortunately, is not here today. Our numbers lady is not here, but it's a tall number. I hate to try to reproduce it. Yes, sir.
Assuming that the census comes in at 25,000 from this special census, can a city council rescind home rule without a referendum?
I don't know.
15% of the voters to put a referendum on the ballot is an awful hard road to hoe.
Yeah. Jim, do you know if they could rescind it? I look to Jim as my expert.
They could, however, you can do a petition drive to repeal home rule.
Right. And they could also just opt to not take advantage of it and operate as they do today.
How many
Theory.
signatures would we need to?
15%.
15% of the last election or something.
However, isn't it true that if you do rescind home rule, that everything that was put in place while taxes, debt, while you're under home rule, stays in effect?
You bet.
I believe so. I think that Westmont was one of those.
Yes, legally binding, basically.
Yeah.
If you incurred debt, if there were tax levies that were raised, that's done. And
Right.
so basically it would undermine, government in general. So therefore, yes, you are absolutely responsible. So
Yeah.
one example was Rockford. They repealed home rule in, I believe it was 1980, but they still had all the debt. So what they did was they then passed a referendum to raise their property taxes again. Now, that's unfortunate. They wound up raising it right back to the home rule level. Now they say that put citizens more in charge. Your money was still lost, if you were in Rockford. The whole community would still be responsible for it.
Yes, sir.
Voters in Action looking toward running a slate for the April elections next year?
No, sir. We don't. We are not that sort of organization. We're really issues focused. I'm running for an office, and I'm not even wearing my pin or distributing any of my materials. That's not what this is about. We're really focused on issues, taxes, corruption, access, those sorts of things. Any other questions? Scott, would you have
Could you introduce Mr. Reich, please?
Oh, in the back, Steve Reich. He's another candidate for the 63rd district. Joined us a little bit late.
For Jack Frank's.
In Jack Frank's district, exactly right. So wish him luck. Say a prayer. If there aren't, yes, another question. Yes.
What are the benefits they say come with home rule?
So some of the things they say are they have more control, and I can see where in the right hands more control can be good. So they can do things like raise sales tax. They can do things like legislate if you're a landlord. Now sort of legislate what goes on between you and your tenants. And they have some other potential abilities. They talk a lot about being able to get $151 a person for every new person they find. And again, when they get money, that's coming from you. So if you find that to be a benefit, then I guess you call that a benefit.
Could I have one more thing to say?
Yes, we have another.
I have a comment. I'm here because this is a local issue, not a political issue.
Right.
And everybody that's gotten up to speak has said, this one's a crook, that one's a crook, Steve Reich is here, da-da-da. I'm in the minority here right now. I'm a Democrat. Can all of this be handled as we're all citizens of this community rather than make disparaging remarks about people who you may not care for?
I'm sorry,
It's very uncivil.
Yeah, I
I
didn't
found this
hear-
whole thing to be very uncivil.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I didn't.
Yes, well,
I didn't
it's
hear
just a
that so
comment.
much.
About middlemen, who?
We're not, that's it.
Okay. Well, I apologize if you were. That wasn't the
But
intent.
this
That's
is a
for sure.
community thing.
Right.
Not, okay, so
Right.
let's not say Madigan is a this, or
Oh,
Fullerton is a
okay.
that, or this one is a
Right.
that.